Fearsome heavyweight Alexander Volkov towered over Fabricio Werdum. All 6'7" of Russian belligerents hauled from his victim after landing a series of nightmarish shots on Saturday night. He appears to have been created by a Russian laboratory, though they would deny it. The man from Moscow may be a true-to-life Ivan Drago character, but this was a fight scene too violent for Hollywood. His freakish physique isn't much good horizontally, however, with the Brazilian toppling his former training partner early on before using gravity, and his uncompromising top game to rain down punches in the first round. The Russian scrambled back to his feet, launching an uppercut from a different postcode, and it scrambled the former champion's brain for a split second. For a while it seemed like this was a puzzle both men knew the answer to but couldn't find the missing piece. A cut leaked from the cropped blonde hair of Volkov, but he was winning the stand-up battle, using his natural range to all but close Werdum's right eye, which was turning an offensive shade of violet. The wily old veteran slithered his way onto Volkov's back in the third but couldn't make it stick. The championship rounds began with Werdum desperately attempting to snag a limb and manipulate a submission, but he was buying time and there was an air of inevitability about the end when it came. Volkov launched a furious assault from all angles and crumpled his old friend, prompting Mark Goddard to step in mercifully and end the punishment. There was no Rocky-esque fairy tale for the old warrior. Werdum, and Drago is now in touching distance of a heavyweight title shot. Jimmy Manuwa picked himself up off the canvas to survive the opening round of his light heavyweight duel with Jan Blachowicz, spattered with blood, bowed but unbroken by a meteoric left hand. The Londoner's name reverberated around the O2 arena and a guttural roar went up every time Poster Boy connected with his Polish foe, a man he'd comfortably beaten in their first encounter. This wasn't the same Blachowicz, however, content to be stalked by the British fighter until he could unleash counters laced with venom of his own. Claret spilled over both combatants as they toiled against each other on the cage, but Manuwa was beginning to find a home. For those breeze block fists, and teammate Alexander Gustafsson was on his feet screaming with the rest of this partisan crowd. Blachowicz sat behind a piston-like jab in the third, but Manuwa piled on the pressure, smothering his opponent with a relentless trudge forwards. With 30 seconds on the clock, Blachowicz found the energy for a takedown to underline a calculated, intelligent performance. The judges scored it unanimously for the poll, but the home fighter put on an unbelievable show for his city. The 38-year-old would no doubt love a trilogy match to settle the score. Stylish Parisian Tom Duquesnoy fought like it was nothing more than a stroll down the Champs-Élysées. His scything leg kicks halted the march of California's Terrion Ware, who showed the kind of durability a two-fight losing streak bestows, and ended the second round in top position. Ultimately, Duquesnoy outpointed his opponent and was just too evasive for Ware to land anything meaningful. Ware's corner were furious when the judges awards the Frenchman a unanimous decision, but in truth their man was outclassed. Birmingham's Leon Edwards sent Peter Sobota tumbling to the canvas with a flashing combination to bring the crowd to their feet and start the main card with a bang. The German then took time out in the second to recover from a wince-inducing kick to the crown jewels, but shook it off to see the end of the second. Rocky barely broke a sweat and never looked in trouble, coasting through the final 5 minutes with his hands low before digging in some spiteful elbows to slice up Sobota in the ground. A millisecond before the end of round 3, the referee waved it off with Edwards swinging savage shots from on high. That's 5 wins in a row now for the surging welterweight. He used his time on the mic to call out Darren Till for an all-British showdown at UFC Liverpool in May. Charles Bird took down Welshman John Phillips almost instantly before going to work on the ground. The American capitalized on exhaustive top position before locking up a rear naked choke to hand Phillips a debut to forget. His post-victory breakdancing was even more slick than the first-round submission. London-born Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts violently knocked out the highly rated Oliver Nkamp. The Swede is nicknamed the Future, but a gigantic overhand left knocked him into last week. This first-round KO could be a watershed moment for Roberts. The rising welterweight said, "I'm a dog of war, I was looking for the counter every time. London, I love you. I came from nothing and I want to show everyone what you can do when you apply everything." A stunning first-round choke earned Danny the Hatchet Henry a second win in the UFC. It took just 39 seconds for the Scot to twist Hakeem Dawodu's neck to an ungodly angle and force the tap. A sledgehammer right hand rung unbeaten Dawodu's bell, and Henry didn't need a second invitation to sink in a brutal guillotine. A quick night's work but massively impressive. Paul Barraju Craig described his 2017 as hellish, but he extinguished those fires with a nice cool submission with only 5 seconds remaining in his fight with Magomed Ankalaev. The unbeaten Ankalaev unfurled a flurry of thunderbolt ground and pound from Mount at the climax of the first round, only to be interrupted by the buzzer. Craig looked down and out, but with the clock running down and his UFC career on the line, he pulled out a triangle to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. "In my defense, it was a sweet submission," "God, I'm knackered. That was the last fight in my contract, but I wanted to keep living this dream," the Scot said after his remarkable victory. Cries of freedom echoed around the arena as Stevie Braveheart Ray suffered a cruel defeat by Kajan Johnson. The Canadian didn't exactly endear himself to the crowd afterwards, calling them a disgrace for booing the controversial decision. He took exception to the negative reaction, declaring Ray and himself two of the finest martial artists in the world who had bled for the London supporters and deserved better.